Burning Point.
Hello and welcome to the show with me, Katerina Kudashkina. According to the CNN Monday report, a U.S. Air Force spy plane flying in international airspace, conducting an electronic eavesdropping mission on the Russian military, fled into nearby Swedish airspace without that country's permission. The incident was first reported by the Swedish news agency Svenska Dagbladet. The United States was discussing the matter with Sweden. Yet, why a seemingly routine incident would make such a splash, and why would Sweden sound so upset about its ally? We're discussing it with our guest speaker, Johan Backman, Doctor of Social Sciences and Adjunct Professor of Sociology of Law at the University of Helsinki.
Now, regarding the violation of the airspace of Sweden, first of all, I don't believe that the airspace of Sweden was violated. I think that there was an agreement between the U.S. and Sweden about kind of a legal violation of the airspace. I think that Sweden is giving plenty of aid to U.S. intelligence against Russia. I mean, it's very well known that Sweden was providing the United States intelligence information about Russia. I mean, that's well known. And it's very likely that Sweden is now cooperating with the United States against Russia in this very tense situation. We have to see this in the framework of the grand strategy of the United States of America today. Now, United States of America is preparing various kinds of anti-Russian aggressions. First of all, there is the aggression against Russia in the territory of Ukraine. There is the aggression against Russia by means of the sanctions against Russia, and it is very likely that the United States is preparing a new kind of provocation at the Baltic Sea. Now, in this purpose, they are gathering intelligence around the Baltic Sea, and now it's not excluded that the United States is planning to shut down another aeroplane at the Baltic Sea, and then blame Russia and blame Kaliningrad for that. That's one of the possibilities in this case. Now, regarding the situation with Sweden, it's of course quite sad to understand that the Swedish people is in a way utilized in this situation to believe that Sweden is a sovereign state and it's a neutral state. It's outside of NATO. It's not a NATO country. But as a matter of fact, as we know, the Swedish intelligence has been providing information about Russia to the United States intelligence. And in this case, I think that the relationship between the United States intelligence services and the Swedish intelligence has been activated. And it has been activated in the purpose of planning a new provocation at the Baltic Sea and to blame Russia. Now, we remember one very interesting incident that was the submarine incident in the early 1980s. But it was also a provocation against the Soviet Union organized by Swedes together with the Americans. Now, they are probably trying to do something like that. And the situation is obviously very dangerous because the provocations orchestrated by United States of America has been extremely horrifying. First of all, in February this year, there was a massacre of innocent civilians by snipers in the city center of Kiev, Ukraine. It's very likely that it was organized by United States security services together with NATO. Now, the other, even more horrible provocation was shutting down the Boeing airplane at the exact location of the People's Republic of Donetsk. Now, the purpose of the Boeing incident was to bring NATO troops into People's Republic of Donetsk. For this purpose, the NATO troops have been waiting at the territory of Ukraine. The NATO troops from Australia and Holland have been the Netherlands. They have been ready to occupy, ready to intervene into the territory of People's Republic of Donetsk at the site of the crashed airplane. Now, it's very well known that the Kiev junta has informed the press about approximately 1,000 armed soldiers from Australia from the Netherlands who allegedly are waiting at the territory of Ukraine the possibility to enter the territory of the Donetsk Republic. Now, this was the plan, the original plan of the provocators, and now it's very likely that they are planning a new provocation at the Baltic Sea, probably shutting down a civilian aeroplane and blaming Russia. Now, in this case, it's very clear that the question is not about any kind of a violation of Swedish border. It has been agreed. It has been agreed with the Swedish leadership that they have the possibility to cross the Swedish border. We have to remember that the Swedish foreign minister Carl Bildt is the main representative of the United States in the Northern Europe. It's well known that he is doing everything possible in the interest of the United States. And in this way, he is betraying the Swedish people, obviously.
Which means that Swedish neutrality is something extinct.
Well, I think that at today's situation, both Sweden and Finland, they are neutral countries. They are outside of NATO. They are not NATO countries, and they are not actively even seeking for NATO membership. But the United States and the United States intelligence is trying to use and utilize individual politicians in Finland and in Sweden in the interests of the U.S. intelligence. And at this moment, when the United States is planning various kinds of aggressive operations against Russia, including a color revolution in Moscow, which they are planning right now at the same time, it's a third front they are opening now against Russia. Now, the United States has opened 3 fronts against Russia. The first is the military aggression of the Kiev junta against Russia and against Russians. The second are the sanctions at the rear. They are at the same time they are operating at the rear by means of sanctions. And the third front is being opened very soon in Moscow by means of provoking a color revolution in Moscow, and now they are doing it by means of the press, by means of recruiting journalists, and also by means of recruiting politicians. Now, it's very well known that the foreign minister of Sweden, Carl Bildt, is in fact he's a representative of the United States of America. I mean, his every word is as if dictated from Washington. He never says anything that would be in contradiction with the interest of Washington. And on the other hand, the new Finnish Premier Minister, Alexander Stubb, he is as well known as a pro-American politician, and he as well never says anything that would be in contradiction with the interest of Washington. And now the axis of the Finnish Premier Stubb and the Swedish Foreign Minister Carl Bildt, it is extremely important for the Americans. It's extremely important for the Americans who are now, probably by means of provocations, trying to change the public opinion in Finland and Sweden towards more pro-NATO public opinion. Now, the main goal of the United States of America, this situation, is to proliferate Russophobia, is to maximize Russophobia in these countries and in the press of these countries. And that's the only goal of the United States at the moment for the NATO enlargement, and that is the only strategic interest as well in the any intelligence operations of the United States at the Baltic Sea. The mercenaries and the private companies are being used already at the territory of Ukraine.
Yes.
So they are being used all the time. It is known that NATO forces as well have been used at the territory of Ukraine. For example, there was a wide discussion about the snipers representing the NATO countries. Regarding the situation in Donbas region, the Kiev junta informed the public about approximately 1,000 armed soldiers from Australia and from the Netherlands who are ready to enter Donbas, allegedly watch the crash site. So the crash site is only a kind of synonymous for NATO intervention. I mean, if the approximately 1,000 soldiers from the Netherlands and from Australia if they will enter the crash site, it means a NATO occupation. And then they will organize another provocation. They will say that somebody was shooting at them, and then etc., and they will bring more troops, etc., etc. So it will be a NATO intervention.
When we're talking about the major confrontation which can develop between NATO and Russia, could it be rather just saber-rattling to the extreme, or do you see a prospect of a real war breaking out?
Well, I think the real war has broke out already. I think this is the Third World War. But it's not like the First World War, it's not like the Second World War. It's very much different. It's a war of secret armies, it's a war of mercenaries, private companies, it's a war of terrorist provocations. But it has the same idea as the Hitler's campaign against Soviet Union. The destroying the Soviet Union is still the main goal of the enemy of Russia. Now, the main goal of the United States is regime change, which means Putin is not anymore the president, and they are doing this, they are trying to do this by all means. Now, what is very important for the United States is to stop the building of the Eurasian Union. Eurasian Union is going to be, and it's scheduled to be created in the beginning of 2015. Now, by means of all this, the United States and their allies are doing everything to stop the building of the Eurasian Union, and to stop the Eurasian Union to become a significant geopolitical player. Because and when the Eurasian Union will be created next year, it will be a very significant player in the international politics and in geopolitics as well. And this is something the United States doesn't want to see. So they are trying by all means to organize chaos and civil war in Ukraine. They are shutting down airplanes. They are using snipers, and they are doing everything to incite chaos. And now they are operating very thoroughly when they are planning the new provocations. Now, the possible provocations are using chemical weapons at the territory of Ukraine and then to blame Russia. And the second one is to shut down a civilian airplane at the Baltic Sea and then to blame Russia. Now, there was an incident of shutting down a civilian airplane at the Baltic Sea already at the brink of the Second World War. It was Finnish airplane called Kaleva, which was shut down at the Baltic Sea at the brink of the Second World War. Now, it is not excluded that the United States and Great Britain as well are planning a similar kind of provocation. And it's very useful for them to target at Finland and Sweden, because these are neutral countries. If somebody shuts down a civilian airplane from a neutral country, obviously it will be a terrible shock for everybody, for the whole of Europe. And if the provocators are able to mask their terrorist attack and to blame Russia, which is their obvious goal, to organize a false flag operation, so it can be beneficial for the interests of the United States. But the problem is that the provocations the US and NATO have tried to organize before have not been successful. The snipers, they're shutting down the airplane, they're trying to bring in 1,000 NATO soldiers in Donbass. After all, these have not been successful. So they are now trying to do something even more successful, and they're very thoroughly investigating the situation at the Baltic Sea, and I think that they are targeting at Kaliningrad. So they are trying to blame Kaliningrad, which has been one of their goals already for a long time, to blame Kaliningrad and to create suspiciousness against Kaliningrad, etc. So I think this is the main goal of the United States at the moment.
Dr. Beckman, thank you so much. And just to remind you, our guest speaker was Johan Beckman, Doctor of Social Sciences and Adjunct Professor of Sociology of Law at the University of Helsinki. Well, and now we end this edition of Burning Point, brought to you by me, Ekaterina Kudashkina. Thank you so much for staying with us. Goodbye, and take care.